Yes, after the war we had to go where we were sent, and we were directed to, in a sensitive sort of way, to where you would have wanted to go. Well, I probably would have wanted to go to Christchurch Hospital because it was a centre there which covered a big area. I was directed to Hanmer Springs. Now, Hanmer Springs at that time was not really a goal of any physiotherapist, because it was regarded as, by people who were uninformed, which was the majority of the population and the medical profession, as were a lot of people who couldn't cope, or had insomnia or depression or undiagnosed sort of things. Well, we'll try a spell at Hanmer Springs. You'll probably find a different definition for it in the history of medical policy in those days. For example, being just after the war, there were in North Canterbury and other areas war brides who had come from England, and the parent of one of the war brides came out to Waiau, and they were driving her along one of the roads. I think it was a leader road, actually, and the car went over the edge. I think it was after the earthquake or something. It was some sort of event which was unusual for people just come out from England who used to a conventional life. And so she went to Hanmer Springs for a while to settle down. And it served its purpose. But that is my recollection locally of what it was used for. And I'm not clear of the accuracy, but I know the people involved. So I thought, oh well, make the best of it. So I went to Hanmer Springs, and they had two areas, the men's department and the women's department. The women's department was quite up to scratch in facilities, according to those times. The men's department was more of a relic, but it did good work for those times, and the program was well thought out. I'm not qualified to judge, but they had exercises, for example, and the physiotherapist in the women's department, she took the exercises for the women, and there was Mr. Hughes, who didn't have any medical qualifications, but had experience in various things which seemed appropriate, and he coped very well. He took the men. And I spoke to the Hanmer people associated with Queen Mary a couple of years ago, and they had the greatest respect for Mr. Hughes. There were some of the people who, ex-servicemen, were there, and we had quite an interesting time. I've got photos of them, but I think they've got them there too. So that was all right, and when we reported over, when we arrived, I think I've told you the name of the head, haven't I? She was a Scot, and she was a very sincere, capable person. She had not been used to dealing with that type of case. We reported to her, and she said to me, "You can take the men's department," and to my friend, "You can take the women's." That was a very good choice from the point of view of a lot of things, because my friend she was absolutely right for that position, and I was capable of having a stern look on her face. So the first thing that they did when they came in, they had these exercises, and then they went and they had a hot pool. There were individual baths. You can still see them there. It hasn't been demolished yet. And outside the door of the each they were in rows. I don't know, about 3 or 4 or something like that. And outside of the cubicle was a ferritic battery, and the ferritic battery was turned on, and it had the soft iron core which regulated the strength of the stimulus to the muscle. and we'd used it frequently in Dunedin, in the electrotherapy department, for various diagnostic or treatment purposes. I'd never seen it used before as a device which I think nowadays is similar to spa pools, where you have a certain amount of bubble. Well, there's a certain vibration within the water which was pleasant, and the patient just laid back in this pool. It was, in the men's department, was equivalent of an ordinary domestic bath. The women's department, it was a bit flossier, but not much. So sometimes these ex-servicemen, they liked to prank, they'd walk by and and there'd be a yell. They didn't do it in a damaging way, and they were, I think, knew who was in the patient at the time. So they were strict rules that the men coming through, the ex, were not to interfere. So that was dealt with.